Greetings, folks. I am Zazubaar, and welcome back to another edition of ZGC Monthly Reviews, Episode 8. I know it's been a while, but we're back, and we're ready for action. Joining us briefly, for reasons of he had to help me, is my good friend Sid Part 2. So Sid Part 2, welcome briefly to ZGC Monthly Reviews.
Hey everyone, I just came on to totally plug the show Zaz and I do together after I helped him, just because I'm a shameless woman of the evening, except I'm a man.
That last part's debatable. No, I'm kidding. All right, so Ian, just thank you very much for helping me out.
Nope. Good luck, guys. Enjoy your review.
All right.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll see you soon.
See you, man.
All right, see you. Thanks. So, while Ian is now just departed from us, I just wanted to say, if any technical difficulties do present themselves in this review, I apologize. We're experimenting with a brand new way of recording our episodes and just any chats we do, because in case we haven't already made it clear, whenever we do these chats, we're using Skype. And the thing is that generally when me, Adam, and Gorzard either record or are involved in these chats on Skype, we're using we're using our cameras. We stick it next to our computers, and we just have it record with the speakers spilling out. That is a really crappy way to do it, I found, and it can lead to some very terrible audio, which we've had in the past, especially when Gorzard was on the cell phone, and especially when Gorzard first got Skype, because we weren't all sure how to use it. But now we're comfortable in it, so this is the way we're going to be doing it from now on. So I apologize if any technical difficulties do present themselves. We'll work past them and just try to go on with the episode. So with all that said, I should probably introduce my co-host for this month. Joining me as always is the amazing alien slayer / hater of multiple people, Gorzard 8 now. Is it 8 now? I can't keep up with your numbers anymore.
8.
Okay, it's 8. So welcome back, dude.
Back from the dead.
And back again, no. And filling in for Adam this month because he is solving the anti-life equation is our good friend Super DM64. So Super DM, welcome to ZGC Monthly Reviews.
Good to be here.
Just to update you folks as always, the mainstay followers of ZGC Monthly Reviews, Adam is for sure coming back in October because next month we're going to be doing we're going to be doing some Halloween mini specials. But also we're going to be doing Waterloo, which is his pick for the trilogy thing of one person seeing it, the other two haven't. So he's going to be coming back for that. But he'll definitely be back. Excuse me, next time. This is the last time we're going to be having co-hosts. So Super DM will be filling in for Adam tonight. So Adam will be returning next month. So as with the last review, and as I just mentioned, we're doing a trilogy of reviews over the next couple months on ZGC called, not called anything, but basically the premise is that one person has seen the film we'll be reviewing either multiple times or at least once before they actually sat down and watched it for the review. And the other two, this was their first time, and this is just kind of their gut reactions to seeing it. So one of us has that nostalgia factor, the other two don't have that. So, since we've been going in the order of the title of the show, it's Gorzard's turn. So, after I do my little spiel, I'm actually going to be turning over the reins to Gorzard, who will be, for the most part, hosting this review, until we get to the next segment, but for the most part, he's going to be the host. And then I'll just be responding. But basically this month, we're going to be doing 2000s Versus by, is it pronounced Ryuhei Kitamura?
Yeah, it's Ryuhei.
Okay, so Ryuhei Kitamura, it's his movie, and it's a 2000 action, horror, sci-fi, fantasy film. There's multiple genres it fits into, and we thought it was somewhat relevant to our channels because, of course, Ryuhei Kitamura would go on to direct Godzilla Final Wars, which is very apparent if you watch Versus. So I just thought I'd bring that up first before I turn over the reins to Gorzard. So we're going to be doing Versus this month, and that was Gorzard's pick, so without me rambling anymore, Gorzard, I'm going to turn over the reins to you. So what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, I have like 5 different topics to discuss about the film. First is the story, whatever's in it, the characters, the direction, the ultimate cut of Versus, and overall what we think about the film.
All right.
All right, so first I'd like to say my experiences with Versus. The first time I saw Versus was earlier this year, and what got me into it was the fact that Ryuhei Kitamura directed Godzilla Final Wars. So naturally, I thought that Ryuhei Kitamura, without even watching any of his previous films, after viewing Final Wars, I thought he was like the Michael Bay of Japan, and I was wrong. I heard that he made this little film before Final Wars called Versus, and it's his most recognizable and arguably fan favorite film to date. So, of course, me being the cult fanboy, I had to check it out. And, of course, a little help from thepiratebay.com. I saw it, and wow. Just wow. It's mind-blowing in the most positive and weird way.
Emphasis on weird.
Yeah. This movie is weird beyond words. Basically, it's the embodiment of weird, but in a positive way.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. All right, so let's get into the story, whatever is in it, because honestly, I don't see a story in this. It's like, it's just a film of, I'm assuming immortals, this fight between good and evil, this ancient tradition in heroic films and stories and legends, whatnot, except in here it's like immortal reincarnations.
Yeah.
Right, so I hate going into plot detail, but I guess I'm going to have to for this review, and I did it in my review, so I'm just going to rip off my own review. Versus, if you're wondering what the film is about, it's basically a fight between good and evil, two immortals. One wishes to open the 444th portal that's located in Japan called the Forest of Resurrection. And for the record, if you've seen the upload I posted on my channel, you may notice the Japanese text at the beginning that have no subtitles. They basically say that there are 666 portals on Earth that are concealed from human beings, and there are only a rare few select humans that are able to see them. And so these humans are naturally evil, and they want to open these portals in order to consume the darkness and inherit eternal power. Obviously, the villain here attempts doing that, and I don't know how he got his power, but he attempts to open the Forest of Resurrection, which is where our film takes place. And basically, it seems like a very low-budget film, the type of film you would make with your friends if you live out in the woods. Of course, Adam would do that. And
Indeed.
Yeah. So the story, I basically told you the basic bare bones premise of it, but what do you guys think about it, the story?
Well, if I may start out by saying this. I was a little bit off-put from the beginning because the way I took it was the movie almost kind of starts at the end of another story. It's kind of it kind of feels like the way the film opens, like the plot has already happened, and this is the after effects of it, because the film opens with basically our main character, who I don't think is named in the film. I don't remember him getting one. Is escaping from prison with a friend of, well, I guess a colleague or whatever you might want to call it, a companion of his, and they're going to a pickup point or something, and it kind of feels, because they don't explain why he was in prison, they don't explain, how he escaped, anything. It's almost like that story has already been told, and you feel very thrown into it, and at first it was very, very jarring, because generally, at least in American film, the way movie stories work is that there's a strong build-up that sets up the entire narrative, and then the second and third acts, with the build-up being the first act, the second and third acts are the after effects of that, the middle part being the development, and the third part being the conclusion. And Versus does not really have that at all. We're basically jumping into the film, if we were going to compare it to American cinema, at the end of the second act. And as the third act would be, the movie is basically the entire third act of the movie. There's very little exposition. Basically, everything that we learn about the characters and about the scenario is on the fly. Like, we learn it as we're moving through all these action scenes. And at first, I thought it was very jarring, and I thought it was quite a poor way to tell a story, but as I watched the movie, that was what made it unique and what made me so interested. And it came off as a very unique story to me because, well, maybe not unique story, but a very unique way of telling a story because of how on the fly learning all the stuff about the characters is, or lack thereof. I thought it was a very interesting way to tell a story, and one of the most intriguing. So that was kind of my take on it. I thought it was a very unique and interesting way to tell a story, and at the end of the day, quite effective.
All right. What about you, Super DM?
I would have to concur. It was kind of strange the first time I watched it for the same reason that if a movie was like skydiving, then this movie would just push you right out of the plane without even telling you anything. Like, it just throws you directly into the action, and it doesn't give you any. Well, you get some background information as you're going on, and like you said, that's what made it unique. And well, this film is nothing if not unique.
Indeed.
There's really not much you can say about the story because
there isn't one.
It's not plot driven. It's just there are these characters and they're doing what they're doing because they want to, and they all know kung fu for no other reason than they're Asian, and that's all you need to know.
Right.
Wait, if you don't mind, I like to respond to something Super DM said. I felt the same way about the martial arts. I was like, does everyone in this universe just automatically know kung fu or karate or whatever they're doing? Because everyone knows it. No one shows any prior knowledge of it. It's almost like when they go into the Forest of Resurrection, they just automatically know kung fu, unless you're the damsel in distress.
Yeah.
She of course doesn't know kung fu because she's the damsel in distress. And I was very, very off-put by that at first because I was like, why does this guy know kung fu and I know nothing else about him? And even the fucking zombies know kung fu. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's also awesome. And again, it throws you into a universe without any context. And while at first very, very jarring, I thought that was what ultimately made the film interesting. So I have to agree with everything Super DM said.
Oh, and the way they wield their guns is very interesting. It's almost
Sorry, what was that?
The way they use their guns. It's almost like they're sword fighting with guns. They have this
weird,
choreography, and in real life they would break their wrists, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the one scene that I was laughing at, but in a good way, because I feel like this movie is not meant to be taken seriously. If it is, well, but from what you've told me, it's not. So I didn't take it seriously. So I was kind of having a good time watching it, and I was immediately laughing at how they hold their guns, especially the guy with the green suit, the one who's constantly screaming his head off, and at the end of the film is walking around like a dog.
Yes.
He holds his gun always in gangster style. And he never holds it like a traditional pistol. He's always just holding it to the side, like he's gonna bust a cap in some fucker's ass, in that kind of way. And I thought it was very funny at first because it's almost like he's trying this. I agree. It's almost like he's sword fighting with it. He's like keep pushing it forward at the guy. And I thought it was hilarious because it's almost like he's trying to hurt him without shooting the gun. I thought it was hilarious.
You know how much shorter this movie would be if everybody would shoot people when they have them in their sights instead of
right? It'd be like a full 25 minutes shorter
instead of just holding them at gunpoint and then something happens because they're not shooting.
But then they would have to come back alive because they're in the Forest of Resurrection.
Which, by the way, I thought that idea was brilliant.
For the record, I don't know if you guys know this, but the yakuza, the gangster guys.
Yeah.
They can't kill the zombies. They can only put them down for a short while. Only the main prisoner, the main character, can kill them.
Oh, interesting. I thought that they both could.
No. It's implied this at the very beginning. The first guy that dies, the very first yakuza that gets shot and comes back alive. You notice how all the gangsters shoot him, but he doesn't go down. But once the prisoner shoots him, he's dead.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that, but you're right.
Yeah, I know. You have to watch the film multiple times to get certain parts of the film that you wouldn't get on the first watch. Believe me, I watched this movie 1,000,000 times just to get it, and I watched different cuts of it. I watched the R-rated cut, I watched the original cut, I watched the ultimate cut until I finally got it. But we'll go to the different cuts later. But yeah, if you guys seen the film and still don't get it, Prisoner KS something, he's the only one who can actually kill the zombies because he's the quote-unquote chosen one.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the chosen one, you guys got this Matrix vibe to it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an early 2000s action movie. That's kind of inevitable. I mean, a film that was made 2 years later, Blade 2, and of course, in America.
Yeah, but
the first film...
I think it might be.
What was that?
I think it might be a Kitamura thing too, because you can pick that up in Final Wars as well.
Oh, definitely. Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. And the thing with Blade 2 was that Blade had his first movie 4 years before The Matrix, I believe. And it was very much so not like that in the original, but then Blade 2, the entire movie is shot just like The Matrix. And I think it stops becoming a problem because everything was doing it. I mean, even if you watch early season Smallville, it's all like Matrix-style filmmaking. I think that was just the way people were making movies back in the early 2000s. And Versus is definitely... It feels less like a ripoff and more like that's the style that we're going for. So I thought it worked completely in Versus. So I didn't get the sense of ripoff. I just got of it's kind of borrowing that style.
Right. Also, commenting back on the story, if you're planning to watch this film in any way, just know that there isn't no story. Like Super DM said, it's not a story-driven film or a character-driven film. It's an action-driven film, and this film is pure action. It's very hard to define this film as one specific genre. It's not a zombie film. It's not just a horror film or an action film. It's multiple genres rolled into one, and that's basically the style of Kitamura, as I noticed, because after this film, I started watching more and more of Kitamura's early works before he dipped his feet into Final Wars. I seen Azumi, I seen Alive, which I don't recommend watching. I seen Sky High. Basically, Kitamura's style of filmmaking is genre bending. He adds in multiple levels of genre. He can take in romance, action, comedy, and roll it into one single film that cannot be defined into one specific genre. And it really embodies that in Versus. Of course, this was his first major feature film, and I think he did a pretty good job for his first film, even though it's.
I was very impressed with it.
Yeah. What they'll tell you in Hollywood, or if you're an inspiring filmmaker, you're gonna have to write pieces of shit first to get to the top. That's what I've been told. And of course, this has been apparent to Quentin Tarantino because he's written a couple pieces of shit that he didn't want, and miraculously, some of them ended up being successes, like True Romance. I don't think the same rules apply for Kitamura. I think he can... I'm not criticizing him or judging him or calling him a bad filmmaker, but he can take a piece of shit idea and turn it into something cool. And it doesn't even have to have a story to back it up. All it's got to have is badass, stylized directing.
Alright, so basically the film has no story. This is the type of film that you have to leave your brain at home because this is basically an unrealistic, unserious film.
In every sense of that.
Yeah, it was meant to be not taken seriously. Even Ryuhei Kitamura himself said that this was meant as a fun project.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole crew behind the film is called Team Versus.
Oh, wow.
That's how much fun they had with this film, that they even called themselves Team Versus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is basically, a fun film. It's not supposed to be like an intellectual, thought-driven, supernatural action horror film. It's just supposed to be a simple, mindless, mind-boggling action film. Except it has zombies, immortals, and one chick and 3 assassinations.
And I just want to say this quick because I've kind of built up a reputation for doing this. Just because I like movies that work on several levels, that have allegory, that have social commentary, that have a theme. I mean, I've tore every Godzilla movie to pieces trying to find some theme in it, and people were like, "Why are you doing that with Godzilla?" And I mean, I like my movies to have that, but ultimately, that's not always the intention. Just to relate this back to Kitamura, when I reviewed Godzilla Final Wars, I said in the review, there's no theme here, and there wasn't intended to be, so you can't criticize it for that. And I built up a reputation of criticizing films that weren't supposed to have a theme or work on some intellectual level for not having that when that wasn't the point. And I think that it depends on what it is, and clearly this movie is not trying to be intellectual and is not trying to raise it, and it totally devotes itself to being a mindless action movie, and you can't criticize it for that because that was the point. So I just want to say that I'm not being a hypocrite. That's just
I just think that you have to judge film on a case-by-case basis, and you can't judge everything in the same barrel, otherwise you're not reviewing movies properly. So when I say Versus is a great movie, I mean it's a great movie for what it's trying to be. So I just wanted to get that out there and establish that, because I think I've kind of built up a reputation for criticizing films for not being thematic when that wasn't the point.
Right. So basically, I think we covered enough points of the story, because there isn't much of a story to begin with. So,
if you don't mind, I'd like to say one last thing.
Sure.
All right. So I want to kind of bring up the genre crossing thing. I had no idea this was a zombie movie, or it had zombies in it. I had no idea until, one, I saw your short review, and even then I expected there to be like, maybe one scene where there's a zombie that pops up and they have to fight it. But then I started watching the movie, and that was kind of the conflict in the first half hour or so. I mean, more stuff starts to happen after the first hour and 15 minutes, like the start with when we start to learn more about the whole immortals and reincarnation thing. But before that, it is very much so a Night of the Living Dead-esque survival horror flick with zombies in it, and I wasn't expecting that. And that added to the weirdness. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Keep going.
I just wanted to say something about the genre thing quick, and then you can go ahead. I just wanted to say that with the zombie aspect included, I thought this was going to be more of science fiction. I was expecting there to be some virus, or there to be some some new DNA enhancer or something, and that's why all the characters could do the incredible stunts they could do. And I was expecting a sci-fi story. This is not a sci-fi story in any sense of the word. It is 100% bona fide fantasy.
It is the return of the supernatural zombie.
Exactly. And I wasn't expecting that, because I was like, it's an early 2000s zombie flick. It's going to be, science fiction explains zombies. It's going to be some virus or something. No, not at all. 100% curse zombies. So I was really refreshed by that, actually. I was expecting that to repulse me away from it, because I'm a fan of science fiction, not so much fantasy. But I was more intrigued by that, because it made the movie more unique. So I just wanted to get that out there as well.
Yeah, I didn't expect the zombie thing either, because I just thought it was going to be a Kill Bill-esque, modern samurai type flick.
And it's that as well.
But it's also...
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I just interjected there saying it is also kind of a modern samurai flick as well.
Yes, it is many things rolled into one big enchilada.
Indeed. So Gorzard, you may continue.
Well, I was thinking that it's more of a sinful combination of the Evil Dead, Highlander, and the Matrix, as I mentioned in my review.
Yes. Yeah. I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, and there are several key obvious inspirations from the Evil Dead and Highlander. One thing is the swords, and the other thing is I don't know if you've ever seen the Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, but there's this scene where the runt, the little gangster that's always afraid and screaming a lot.
Yeah.
That's what they call him here, the runt. Mm-hmm. He fires that big ass sniper rifle, and he just goes flying across the forest.
Yeah.
And that's a scene from I think it's Evil Dead 2. I forgot, but Kitamura mentioned that he makes several respectful nods to Sam Raimi in the Evil Dead films.
Yeah. Oh, one that I found that I thought was interesting was the way that the main prisoner holds his gun. Because oftentimes in the Evil Dead films, you'll see Ash holding his chainsaw down and his shotgun on his shoulder. And that's the exact same way the prisoner does his. But of course, it's a sword and a strange amalgam of pistol and shotgun with a scope on it. And that's kind of the way he holds his as well. Though I actually think it's reversed. I think he holds the sword on his shoulder and the gun down like that. But it looks just like the way Ash would stand, so I thought that was cool.
Right. One more thing I like to say about the story is that I probably shouldn't say that this movie has no story, because Kitamura tries a little bit to put a small story into the film. There's this scene where the man, that's the main villain, if you didn't know that, has this conversation with prisoner on some weird sepia-toned part of the mountain, and starts talking about the force of resurrection, how it works, and how the darkness is basically this massive power that he's trying to gain. And I thought that the mixture of mindless, action-driven direction and a small portion of story added into the mix, I thought it was, great. If you're going to make a mindless film, it doesn't hurt to add a little bit of story into it. But, of course, that's something Michael Bay hasn't learned yet. So he should take some lessons from Ryuhei Kitamura.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, you always need some sort of context to tell a story. I mean, or, even just to make some form of entertainment. Like, you can't just jump in and go, yeah, this is this world, and now we're just going to have a bunch of people beating the shit out of each other. All right, who are these people? Why are they beating the shit out of each other? And, that's all you need to know, and that's what Kitamura gives you, and he gives it pretty well. And let me just say that even though there's no story, unlike Michael Bay, that doesn't mean the characters suck. I actually really liked and was enjoying the characters, and not just the mindless actions they were performing. Like, I mean, they weren't the most 3D developed characters ever, but I didn't need them to be. I just needed them to be interesting and likable to a point where I wanted to follow them, and Kitamura gives that to you. So I was impressed with it in that regard because it wasn't 100% mindless.
I think it's good the way that Kitamura doesn't try to put a lot of plot into it, because he knows he's just trying to do a mindless action flick. It's not like Michael Bay, who does a mindless action flick and just throws in a story because that's the rule. And we're on our way. Kitamura knows what he's trying to do, and so he just puts enough story in there to meld all the elements together that he wants to meld together.
Exactly. So I would agree with you. Gorzar, do you want to get into the characters later, or can I bring something up about them now?
I was thinking about meshing into the characters right now, since we talked about it a bit.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to bring up one quick thing. There is actually kind of an interesting... I said there was no development. I say that somewhat, but there is actually kind of an interesting one for the prisoner. And here's what I mean by that. I caught this only at the ending because I was really confused by the ending. And then I watched the last 15 minutes of the Ultimate Cut. Just to see exactly what it was about, because I didn't want to sit down and watch the whole thing, but I just wanted to kind of see what was different about it. And I didn't notice many, but just watching all those scenes unfold again, one thing I caught was that when they're doing those flashbacks to old samurai times, and it's the prisoner defending the girl in a noble way, it's very different from the way he acts today. Of course, the prisoner is a reincarnation of that.
Right.
And one interesting thing that the man brings up is he says, you used to be a real pain in the ass because you're all about justice. I like you as a criminal. And I like that because it's kind of like he's almost becoming more cynical as he keeps getting reincarnated. So the first time he was a justice-seeking avenger, and now he's a criminal with kind of a moral compass. That's why he saves the girl and why he defends her. The third time he's reincarnated, and this is something that, Gorzar, I don't know if you didn't want to bring it up on purpose, but the ending, where it's 99 years in the future and the world is basically destroyed, and now it almost seems like the prisoner is evil. And he's saying that he's totally accepting the man's offer to go into the future, to go into the darkness. So I almost kind of took that as a progression of total avenger of justice, criminal with somewhat of a moral compass, and then full-on evil. So I took that as kind of an interesting progression.
Right. Originally, Ryuhei Kitamura filmed the movie with no ending. Originally, he was planning to just end it at the end of the tunnel, where they ride the motorcycle down the end of the tunnel. But the producer recommended him to do something interesting that's never been done before, and that's reverse the rules, just to throw off the audiences.
Yeah.
And I think it works. I think it's a very good ending, because I did not expect that. I did not see that coming, and honestly, it just builds up more interest for a sequel.
Is there going to be one, or?
I have no idea, but I'm going to talk about the potential sequels and remakes that they've been planning later on when I get to the Ultimate Cut.
Sure.
All right, but yeah, onto the characters now. You may notice that the characters are not referred to by name at all, or they're not called anything. And if you look at the casting on the internet, on Internet Movie Database or Wikipedia, you'll notice that the characters are just credited by either their weapons, their sex, or whatever it is that makes them distinguish. Obviously, the main character is called Prisoner KSC-2303. The girl's called the girl. The main villain's called the man, and the crazy yakuza with the green suit is called Yakuza leader with the butterfly knife. And needless to say, I think that's my favorite character in this whole movie.
he's awesome. I like the prisoner though. He's probably my favorite.
Right. It seemed very clear that all the actors here had fun with this film. They had very much, fun playing these unrealistic characters, especially Kenji Matsuda, who plays the yakuza with the butterfly knife.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're all chewing the scenery, absolutely. I mean, just to talk about the prisoner with that, he doesn't seem very over the top at first, and then he takes down a dead body and puts on the leather jacket. And I was like, that was unnecessary, but awesome and very, very over the top.
Right. How Kitamura planned to develop this character is not make him the typical good guy hero, but make him more of a dark hero. He's despicable, but you can't take your eyes off him. That's a type of characterization he wanted to bring to this character, and I think he succeeded too. And he got a really good actor to bring that to life, because Tax Sakaguchi, who plays Prisoner, he plays it very well.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely got a sense of who he was as a person without having any background, without having anything for him, just what's going on now, and that's very impressive for an actor to pull off.
Right. One interesting factoid, Tax Sakaguchi, who plays Prisoner, he never read the script.
Oh.
He never read the script. Every time he was about to do his scenes, he just, looked over his lines, memorized what he could, and just improvised. Interesting. So the whole time he never read the script, and whenever Ryuhei Kitamura brought up the script, he just said, "Oh, it's good, it's good." So there was so much love-hate relationships going on between the production of this film. One of my favorite stories on the production of Versus is this small little conflict between Kitamura and the actor who plays the first Yakuza to get shot.
Oh.
Kitamura said that he didn't like the actor, so he just ended up killing him in the first 15 minutes. and the reason why he didn't like him is because he kept on complaining to him that he needed to get back to Japan in like a few days, because he had other roles to play, and in his mind he was like, "I'm just gonna kill you, dude."
Funny. So I'm sure he shot his zombie stuff first then.
Right.
And also, well, all right, I want to bring back to the story for a second. I was really confused by this. Later on, after the man kills all those people, and then they're alive, are they zombies or are they just resurrected?
Actually, they're both. They label them as zombies, or Western audiences would label the resurrected people as zombies, but in my mind, I think they're just resurrected people, because isn't a zombie something like a...
Well, the thing is that they speak, and they're clearly intelligent. They have a sense of understanding. Just they're under the control of the man. That's the only thing that's different. And I suppose by textbook definition, that's what a zombie is, but they don't act like the rest of the zombies in the movie. They don't lumber around. They don't have their eyes shut. They're not covered in blood.
It's almost like there's some sort of evolved form of zombie.
Yeah.
They have the undead advantages of being a zombie, but then they can also the one flies down onto the ground, he flies and hovers, and then they've all got all these elevated powers. It's almost like they're just the next step up from the zombie, because the other zombies just came back because that's what happens when you're in the forest, but those zombies were created by the man specifically.
Yeah, and that's kind of like I don't know if you guys have played Resident Evil 5, but there's this part where you're in a military complex, and of course you've been fighting zombies the whole game, the infected as they're called, and once you get to this military complex, so you don't fight any zombies, you only fight animals, and you fight kind of sort of zombies, but they're more like they're kind of like just what Super DM described. They're undead, but they can fire weapons. They can take cover. They can roll around. They can, have fist fights. So that's what I was kind of referring to when I was watching Versus, was those zombies.
Two theories that I came up with is one, they're under the control of the band, so they're able to do these all these moves, or they're fresh new kills. They just recently died, and they still maintain their sanity or their memories or their functions. That's just my theory.
Oh, interesting. Well, the thing about that though is that the other one comes back to life and is just basically a mindless killing machine right after they kill him. So.
Right. So my theory is flawed.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's really not though, because that would make sense when he comes back again later, when the man takes control of him.
Did anybody else, when you first watched it, think for like about 15-20 minutes that the man was a vampire? Because there's this one part where like he bites the one girl on the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely thought he was a vampire, but then he started doing all these superhuman moves, and I thought, wait, what is he? So.
Well, then he eats someone's heart, and I thought he was like the god of all zombies or something.
That would be interesting.
Because he takes a bite and swallows that guy's heart he pulls out.
The way he's dressed in like the ancient Japanese scene makes me think that he was like some sort of like mystic that like cast a spell over himself so he could be immortal or something like that.
Oh yeah, totally. I got the same sense.
I guess the role of the man can be opened up to interpretation. I mean, he could be like the king of zombies, or an immortal, or it's never fully explained what he is. As a matter of fact, it's never explained what he actually is,
or why he wants to envelop in the darkness.
Right. Well, I think for that he just wants absolute power.
Right, but we don't know why he wants that. Like, what's his background rate? Like, we don't know what he wants to do with that absolute power once he has it.
I also thought he was a demon for a small stretch of time, but that didn't quite fit either.
He was Scrappy-Doo from the Scooby-Doo movie. No.
Oh my.
Just like he pulls off his chest and this is Scrappy-Doo's piloting a robot.
Oh, please don't bring that up. That made me cry.
Sorry. I watched the Nostalgia Critics review of that today and I thought it was hilarious.
Alright, so, the man, I don't know exactly what he is. The conclusion I came to was he's just an immortal with supernatural powers.
He's a member of the Exilians, that's what he is.
I wouldn't be surprised either. As a matter of fact, Tak Sakaguchi is in Final Wars. I don't know if you knew that, but...
Who does he play?
He plays one of the Exilians, but you can't tell. He plays the male Exilian who fights Don Gordon.
You mean Don Fry, Captain Gordon?
Don Fry, Captain Gordon.
Oh! You're right. Now I'm recognizing him. Here's the thing. When I was watching Versus, and this is just to bring it back to the Matrix, I thought he looked like a Japanese Keanu Reeves. He looks like the hair and the face and just the way he walks around. He looks like a Japanese Keanu Reeves. Especially like Bill and Ted Keanu Reeves. In terms of his hair. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who saw that, but I thought that was funny.
Okay, I want to talk about the Yakuza with the butterfly knife.
Oh, God.
What's your guys' take on him?
I love him.
I was dying of laughter.
He commands the screen.
Yes, he does. He totally steals the show. I mean...
Chewing the scenery is not an accurate term. He's gone to a scenery all-you-can-eat buffet, and he's just chowing down.
That's the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, oh my god. From the very first time that you see him, and he just wants to rip the prisoner's face off, just like for the simplest reasons, I was just dying of laughter. And I was also dying when the prisoner says something smart, he gets all like excited because he has a reason to kill someone now, and he pulls out his gun and he puts on this face of like, ah! And then he jumps around like a fool. I was just dying, and what totally makes it hilarious is the fact that it's all in stop motion. I mean, not stop motion, slow motion. Excuse me.
Yeah, in in your Final Wars review, Bill, you were talking about how you really liked the One Exilium because he was so over the top.
Yeah.
In this movie, everybody is over the top. With the exception of the girl, everyone is over the top, and no one demonstrates it better than the Yakuza boss with the butterfly knife.
Oh my god, I want to bring this up about the entire... This is kind of my generalized feeling about the entire movie. Everything I like about Final Wars is what Versus is. So that's why I liked it. Because I was like, everything I like about Final Wars is in this movie, and that's what it focuses on. Because, and I think I brought this up in my review, I did it a few days ago, so I forget. But, my biggest problem with Final Wars is the fact that it's a Godzilla movie, and that Godzilla has no bearing on the story, and that all the human scenes are absolutely badass, and they're all really, really cool to see. And Versus is basically all the human scenes from Final Wars, but that's the focal point. So that's that's why I really, really enjoyed it, because I was like, that's what I like about Final Wars, and then this movie, that was the whole movie, so.
And another feeling that I got, and me and Gore were talking about this earlier, the whole film kind of feels like you're watching a live-action anime, because sometimes in anime people will like make these really weird facial expressions and just do these crazy over-the-top things, and that's basically what every single fight scene and character is channeling in this movie. Like the moment in an anime where a character just makes this random O face for no reason, that's throughout the entire movie.
I got the same exact sense.
I think Versus was meant to be an anime. Yeah,
no, absolutely, or a manga even.
Speaking of which, there was a rumor several years ago, around 2008, when Kitamura's U.S. debut directorial film, Midnight Meat Train, came out. Some animated sketches or pictures came out on the internet saying that there was going to be an animated Versus. I saw it and I didn't know what to make of it, because honestly, yes, Versus does feel like an animated an anime, but I just really don't see that. I just really can't picture a Versus anime actually happening. Well, but of course, that never happened. So I think it was just a rumor.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I know you said before that Gorza, that you said you'd like to have a sequel to this film, especially with the ending, and I can see that, but I honestly felt like everything Kitamura wanted to say with this thing, or wanted to do with this thing, he does in this movie. And though the ending is extremely interesting, I wouldn't want to see a sequel featuring that storyline continued, because I feel like the entire premise and the entire universe is summed up and explored in this one movie. So I would say they would be remiss to do an anime, because I think that they would ultimately be rehashing this movie. So this movie, I can't really see anything being spun off from it that's telling a different story. You know what I mean?
Right. I was gonna say something about the anime thing, but
sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I forgot. I just forgot.
Also, the way the fight choreography flows is very anime.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love how the very first shot of this film is you see a black screen and then all of a sudden it's split because it was actually this guy and now he's been cut in half.
Yep. Yeah.
What a way to open a movie.
Right? And by the way, let me just say, with the way the movie progresses in terms of editing, that first scene feels entirely pointless. But then once you find out the background, it's not. Because when I was watching the movie, I didn't know about the story yet. Like, I went into this completely blind. All I had was Gorzard, your mini review, and that still didn't even give me enough context. Not that that's a criticism of your review, it's just I still felt like I went in blind. And I felt like that scene was just setting up the zombie thing, and then when all of a sudden we just jump right into this prisoner thing, I was like, so that first scene was entirely pointless. And of course it's not later, because they flash back to it and give you more details on it. So I thought that was amusing.
Right. You guys do know what that scene was about, though, right? With the samurai. Yeah,
that was the confrontation between the man and the prisoner for the first time, right?
Yeah. Well, you guys don't know, or do you know why there's a bunch of bodies around? I don't think they're zombie bodies. Well, not at the beginning, but later on, where you see a whole bunch of different bodies, not unzombie-like.
Are we talking about the body that the prisoner got his jacket from?
Actually, I'm about to get to that later, but basically what I want to say is that in the flashbacks, the reason why that one guy from the beginning gets killed is because he was the last line of defense for the princess, which, you know, is the early reincarnation of the girl. Adam asked me this because he got confused, so I thought there were other people confused for this if they saw the film. But the samurai from the opening and prisoner in his original samurai form are the last line of defense against the man.
Yeah, I got that sense.
Yeah, Adam didn't get it, so I assumed other people didn't get it too. Also, and speaking of the guy that's tied up to that tree and a prisoner steals his clothes, that's actually the samurai from the beginning of the film.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, so it kind of, you know how, like, in the opening film, he was there before prisoner, you know, his ancient samurai form. Yeah. Well, it kind of like re-implies into the future where he got there before prisoner escaped from jail and the yakuza killed him.
Oh,
so basically,
that's cool.
Basically all the events in the future are mirrored from the past.
And that was one of my favorite parts about the film. I thought that was a really cool way to tell a story.
Yeah, except in this case, prisoner doesn't actually kill the girl.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think we talked enough about the characters, but one character that I really liked and I wish could have been given more to work with is the assassin with the red hair.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice him. I mean, I know who you're talking about, but I was like, oh, that guy, yeah.
He looks so cool, but
I love when the prisoner takes his sunglasses and the girl just kind of shakes her head no at him.
Oh yeah, I love that scene. So I'm like, yeah, I was like, oh, now it's cementing itself as a Matrix ripoff. But I thought he takes them off, which I found hilarious.
All right, so we haven't talked about the girl yet. What's your guys' take on her? Is she pointless, or does she?
Well, she's obviously not pointless because she's kind of the crux of the narrative. So, or the progression. I hold my tongue to say narrative, but she's the crux of the progression of the movie. She is definitely unquestionably bland, but I almost got that was the point.
Yeah, me too. Because I think she's supposed to be like the one serious character juxtaposed against all these crazy badasses running around everywhere.
Exactly. And I was like, she's kind of like what Kitamura would do with Miyuki in Godzilla Final Wars, because she too was kind of the damsel in distress. And I had that with her, what you just said about this girl. But I don't think she's pointless. I just think that she's the cliched damsel in distress, but it's not a problem for me in this film because I get the sense that Kitamura knew that, and that was the point, and he draws attention to it and makes fun of it, especially the part where she falls down and the prisoner is about to help her up, and she's like, "You've changed," and he's like, "Yeah, fuck you, bitch," and then he lifts his hand up and continues walking. I thought that was hilarious.
What I found hilarious is the multiple times the prisoner knocks her out.
Yeah, that too. And then the last time it doesn't work.
It's just funny. I don't want to say that it's good. It's a good progression between their characters because it's not. It's abusive, but it's just
fair
hilarious.
enough. I mean, this movie isn't really worrying too much about its characterization.
I love how at the beginning the prisoner says, "I hate guys that don't respect women," and then every 30 minutes he knocks the chick out.
Yeah.
I did not notice that until now. I did not notice that.
I did. I thought that was funny. And I didn't equate it together. I thought that was funny because it's like, dude, you're totally abusing this chick, yet you're making fun of guys who abuse chicks. It's weird. Very inconsistent.
What do you guys think about the cops? Super D and me talked about them earlier, and he thought that they were like they just popped out randomly.
Yes, they are completely random.
I thought, I'm with you. I thought they were pointless. I mean, the only thing that kind of connected them with what was going on was that we find out where that hand came from, which I was wondering about in the opening. and we find out whose hand that is. Let me just say this though, I thought it was hilarious that the guy is walking around missing a hand and doesn't seem to have impact his motor skills or like his ability to rationalize things. Like it seems to not affect him at all. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, he doesn't even complain. He drives the car. I don't know why you would let the one-handed man drive the car.
He drives the car with one hand missing.
I mean, you can drive with one hand, but something goes wrong and you got to swerve. What are you gonna do?
Oh god, I thought that was funny. But just to actually seriously criticize them, I thought they were pointless. They have, and I'm gonna be straight with you guys. I actually briefly nodded off while watching this movie, and it had nothing to do with it being boring because this movie is far from boring. It was just that I was extremely tired when I was watching it, and I watched it at like 9 o'clock in the 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was still kind of recovering from going to bed at 4. So I was kind of recovering from that, so I eventually did nod off. But I woke up in a couple minutes, so I actually missed their fight scene with all those people. So if I say something stupid and untrue, forgive me. I didn't see all of it, but but even that fight scene feels pointless in the overall film. Like it just feels like, oh, we had to have another fight scene, so let's have these cops with a giant sniper rifle. And I thought it was funny. I didn't think it had a point. Saying that though, I absolutely love the one guy who kept saying how awesome he is. Like I have the smell of a dog. And
he reminds me of Hercule from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, he did. He definitely did. And I also love that he was
he's just talking about I'm awesome, and then he gets blown up.
Yeah, and then also I love the part where he's like, I was raised in Canada and shit. I was like, what else did you do that we're not hearing of? Because didn't he also say something about I was a combat soldier or something? I forget.
He was trained in Langley, Virginia, in the CIA headquarters.
Oh yeah.
As if the Matrix overtones weren't bad enough, he tried to do the bullet time thing. Like he even leaned backwards and waved his arms around when he tried to dodge the bullet right before he gets blown up.
Yeah. Oh god. I thought his character was hilarious, just ultimately pointless.
Yeah,
I think they were. Okay, go on.
Both of them were really hilarious, and they're just sort of comedy relief. But it's kind of like when you watch Wes Craven's original Last House on the Left, where every now and then he just takes breaks from the story to show these two bumbling country cops who are pitching a ride on a chicken truck, and you're like, why?
Oh my god, I never knew that. I've only seen the remake of Last House on the Left, and that movie has no jokes in it.
No, I think the remake's actually decent. But yeah, the original has this problem of inconsistency.
Anyways, going back to Super DM's comment, Kitamura did say that the cops were meant for comic relief, but also to kind of connect their connection to a prisoner because they're after him in all this. Yeah,
well, and I say they're pointless. They're really not in the kind of, because that's kind of, as I said before, it feels like the story has already taken place and this is the after effects of it. The build-up of that would be, the prisoner riding in with these two cops and then he escapes. And that's kind of the after effect of that. So they're not entirely pointless, but just the way they come off is pointless because once they don't show up until after all the zombie and immortal stuff has happened. So it comes off as pointless after all those revelations have come in. So they came off as pointless to me in that regard.
I think they should have had one more scene. I think we should have had a scene near the beginning showing the prisoners escape, because when those cops first showed up, I was like, okay, who are these guys? Where did they come from? Why did they have a wreck?
Well, I wouldn't have needed them to have a scene with that happening, because I actually kind of like that we don't see that, but I wish that they would have been introduced earlier.
In some way.
Because they feel very out of place after all the immortal stuff has happened. You know what I mean, guys?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
They feel very out of place after we get all the zombie stuff and the man coming in. I feel like they should have been introduced before the man. And wouldn't have this been cool if they're tracking the prisoner and they're about to kill him, and then the man shows up and kills them.
That would have been neat.
Yeah.
Why does the cop with only one hand shoot anybody that calls him officer?
Yeah, I thought that was funny too.
How many people has this guy killed? Because, you know, when you're running to a cop for help, you're like, officer.
Now that you mentioned that, I have the 3-disc DVD for the Ultimate Versus, and there's this small little video. It's a side story to the cops. It's called Nervous. Get it? And it's basically an interrogation scene. The cop who lost his arm, he's interrogating some guy who called him officer, and the whole video is nothing but the build up to the poor guy saying officer. You know, the cop is basically saying all these different things in different ways. Do you know what did you know what you call me, and all this stuff, but in a different way, in different ways. And I guess you later figure out that these guys are just corrupted cops.
Oh, clearly. I mean, they've got a giant sniper rifle in the back of their van, so clearly they're not exactly on the level cops.
Yeah, again, with the exception of the girl, no character in this movie is really supposed to be morally upstanding.
No, not at all.
I think it's time to get into the man, you know, as the last character that we should talk about. I thought that he was like the second best character of the film.
I thought he was the man. Wink, wink. That was terrible. I apologize. Go ahead, Corzard.
I was done.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm just basically going to repeat myself because I already talked about how awesome he is, but he's awesome. And the thing I really liked about him was while he was undeniably chewing the scenery, not the buffet that the yakuza leader with the knife was, but definitely chewing the scenery like the rest of the actors in the film. And it was in a different way, though. Like, I mean, the yakuza with a butterfly knife was completely hamming it up. I mean, he was having a mile-wide ham sandwich, but this you know, the man was doing it in a different way. He was still chewing the scenery, but it was more of an over-the-top villain way, being very, very creepy and almost like overplaying the creepiness of it. Like, he talks very low. He never really yells.
Right. What I love about him as a villain is that he's not your typical mean bad guy. He's just this villain that's laid back. He's acting all cool. He's very confident in the events that are about to ensue until we get to the showdown.
Exactly. And I also love the part where I really like how the man when we first see him, he gets shot. And I was expecting the yakuza leader with a butterfly knife to be the main villain of the movie. And I was expecting him to just kill the man, as he's called, long before he would become the villain. And that's not what happens at all. And I thought it was a really cool reveal when he just gets up. And he comes off immediately as a badass when that happens.
Right. One thing that you mentioned about him not screaming and all that, it's very relevant when you look at the flashback. Prisoner, in his samurai form, kills the girl, and he doesn't even scream. He just makes these expressions, and he doesn't make much expressions in his futuristic form, but when he does, it's kind of funny, because I think he purposely makes these comedic
it's very anime.
Yeah, very anime.
Yeah, I think so too. And I really liked him as a villain. I thought he was very well. I thought he was very well acted in the sense of being over the top. And I don't know. I thought he was awesome. Especially the part where he starts fighting all the yakuza leader and his men, and he just tears through all of them. And then when he gets to the female one, he actually tries to make out with her while they're fighting. I thought that was funny.
Kitamura actually wanted him to do more nasty things to her. Like, he recommended him to stick his tongue down her throat, and he didn't do it.
Well, he comes close. I mean, he bites her neck while making out with her at the same time. So I thought that was creepy. And that's where I thought he was a vampire.
All right.
Yeah.
So I love the man. I think he's awesome.
I like when he makes his first appearance, because they only mention him a few times before that, And when he arrives, it's very ominous, and he just has this over-the-top creepy vibe. And then when he starts fighting, we realize that he's just batshit crazy like everybody else in this movie, but in a much different way.
Just like everybody else.
Well, I think we talked about the characters enough. I think it's time to go into the direction, the directional style of this film as staged by Ryuhei Kitamura, which up to this point, I consider him now a visionary.
How so?
This is nothing if not stylized.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He definitely had a distinctive vision when he went into it. The thing that I was most impressed with was that this movie is by its very nature extremely unoriginal while also being very original. And what I mean by that is it's basically taking a bunch of different premises, I don't know how you say that plural, but basically taking a bunch of different ideas from different films and mixing them all up, you know, the martial arts and the slow-mo of The Matrix, the zombie style of, you know, the Evil Dead films and Night of the Living Dead, and the fantasy
Highlander.
elements, sorry?
Highlander.
Definitely Highlander. And, you know, like the fantasy elements from like, mid-60s, early 70s, like Toho and Dai, you know, samurai films like the Daimajin films. And it's somehow, you get what I mean by visionary is it completely devotes itself to mixing those, and that's how it comes off as original. So I thought that was cool, and he was definitely a great director for that, so I thought that was cool.
All right, Super DM, what's your take?
Like I said, this film is nothing if not stylized. The man knows how to shoot an action sequence.
Indeed.
By the man, we're talking about Kitamura, right?
Yes, we are. Oh, yes, Batman.
Batman, what?
No, not Batman, Batman. Which, by the way, if they ever make an Asian Batman, I want the guy that played the yakuza boss with the butternut flying out to be the Joker. But anyway.
Oh, wait a minute. They did make they made a Chinese Batman that Gorzard sent me.
They did?
It was animated.
It was, if nothing but fucking weird, and I didn't like it.
Aw.
But anyway, back to the topic.
Yeah.
He comes off to me being kind of Tarantino-esque, like the way he.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I really like his style.
Very, very Kill Bill-esque film.
But so some people would compare Kitamura to Quentin Tarantino in his style of swordplay, but Versus came like 4 years before Kill Bill.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a reference point to compare it to that more people probably have seen. By the way, just an editing comment. I'm going to be putting a link to Versus and something else in the description below, so definitely, since I'm not sure how many of the people watching have seen the film, and since we've already spoiled the ever-living shit out of it, I don't know why I'm saying this now, but it's in the description if you want to watch the movie for yourself, because if you haven't noticed, it's very hard to describe. So, definitely watch it in the description below. But I have to agree with Super DM in that the guy knows how to shoot an action scene. And again, he definitely knew what he wanted to do with this film visually. And it's all very consistent and extremely original. So I think he's a fantastic director when doing what he wants to do. Just to kind of bring this back to Final Wars a little bit is that one of my other problems with Final Wars is that at points it feels like it's doing conflicting genres like monster movie and over-the-top martial arts movie, which never went together in my mind. And with Versus, though, he doesn't have that problem because he's doing just what he wants to do. So I think he's a very effective director when given the material he wants to work with.
When you watch his scenes, particularly the action scenes, the word that was in the back of my mind the entire time was fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
it's just an incredibly fun time.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately the point of this movie. And I don't know about you guys, but it's just fun to talk about the background of all of it, because basically this entire review we've been casting out theories of why things are happening, and I think that's part of his point of just jumping in right at the end of a story. So I thought that was very cool and makes it more fun.
Things ambiguous.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool and part of the thing that makes it fun and interesting. And of course, the action scenes are if nothing but fun.
Right. One thing I like to point out is that Versus was actually originally intended to be a sequel to Kitamura's critically acclaimed independent film Down to Hell, which is basically the early conception of Versus. It has the same basic concept, same basic idea, force of resurrection, and a whole bunch of shit goes down, but I have no idea if there were zombies involved. But that film became so popular, and they gave him enough money to make a sequel. And originally, it was going to be called The Return Down to Hell, with, number 2 replacing T.O.
Oh, wow.
But the script surpassed expectations, and it eventually evolved into a different film.
Have you seen Down to Hell?
Yeah, I actually put it up on my Gore's Movie Clips channel, but with no subtitles.
Oh, that's a problem then.
Don't worry, I'm gonna try to find subtitles for it if there are any, or if not, I'm gonna do it myself and make up my own story.
Well, you just put it through Google Translator.
I can?
That'll automatically sub it, so. God
damn it.
It won't be totally accurate, though, so fair warning.
I'll get the gist and fix a few things. Okay, yeah, anyways.
Exactly. But I wanted to ask you because now I got a question. Is it really that similar? Like, does it have the Immortals thing going in the Forest of Resurrection?
I have no idea about the Immortals. It does have the whole resurrecting thing, but no zombies. The whole point of Down to Hell was this guy gets kidnapped in a game of death, and the point of the game is run across to the end of the forest, and if you get caught, you die. But I guess apparently, the Forest of Resurrection is played into it in some way, because I seen bits and pieces of it. I seen the trailer, and it's basically like the same level of violence as Versus is, except it's not as bloody, but basically it's just an early conception. It's the early version of Versus. Ryuhei Kitamura is actually in the film. He's basically the equivalent of the yakuza with the butterfly knife.
Oh, that's funny.
It sounds reminiscent of The Most Dangerous Game.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically that, but I guess with the fantasy elements involved. But I don't know much about it because I haven't fully seen it yet.
Ah, okay, I see. I actually like to bring something up quick because Gorzard, you brought this to the forefront of one of our conversations when we reviewed Batman Year One. Because I'll admit I was very apprehensive to see this film because of the gore, and you brought this up in that review when you said we were going to do Versus because of the gore, and I'm going to just say it right now. I'm not a fan of gore. It was when we were talking about RoboCop 2. And my problem with gore is that oftentimes in film it's not necessary, and when they show it, it often overshadows what's going on. Like I haven't seen a horror film, well, with the exception of Prometheus, so that's not really a horror movie by principle. Not counting Prometheus, I haven't seen a scary modern horror movie in over 3 years, and and the reason is because they show so much gore that I think it distracts from the horror and makes it very, very comical. And the thing with Versus, and gore oftentimes does repulse me also because, again, I think it overshadows the characters. The thing about Versus though is the gore is the point. So, it didn't actually bother me because it wasn't distracting and it wasn't and the being so gratuitous, that was the point. So it didn't bother me in Versus because, again, that was kind of the point. So I was very surprised with my own reaction.
If anything, the film embraces the gore, or the gore is actually a character in the film. If you think about it.
Oh, the shot that sticks out in my mind is when I forget, does he shoot it, or he does something where he blows, there's a hole in some guy's head or a girl's head, and you can see inside. They do like a POV shot from inside the hole, and you can see.
It's when the man punches through the yakuza with the red hair's face.
Yeah, and you're right. And you see like the bottom jaw, and I'm like, that is so fucking cool looking.
And then he has the eyeballs in his hand.
Yeah. Well, that looked silly. I mean, they looked so fake, but otherwise it was cool.
It's almost like Gore is the only, like, overriding theme in this movie.
Oh, for sure.
But to be fair, if you don't like Gore, it is really not as bad as the Gore of Japan's today's film. I haven't seen this film, but I've seen the trailer, and the trailer is disgusting enough to make me not want to watch this movie. It's this Japanese film called Tokyo Gore Police.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, by that title, you can already tell what's it about. Pure gore. But here, it seemed like the gore is very old-styled. It's not CG. It's more practical.
Yeah, and as Super DM said, it's kind of a character. So
yeah, surprisingly enough, it's not that disgusting as one would expect.
No, not at all. I was not at all disgusted.
Because it's a part of the film.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't get my 2 cents about Kitamura's direction. A lot of people would compare Kitamura to Quentin Tarantino, and I even at one point compared him to Michael Bay, which I now take back. I don't think Ryuhei is comparable to any existing director. I think he is his own man, because I don't think any other director can imitate this. Maybe Quentin Tarantino to a certain extent, but not to a full extent where this almost seems like a ripoff of Kitamura. Because, like you guys said, this seems more like Kill Bill style. But, this came before Kill Bill 2000 as opposed to 2004. Kitamura, as I said before, I think he's a visionary because he kind of like a... I don't mean to get preachy here, but he kind of embodies what dumb but fun films are meant. Pure entertainment.
Yeah. And just to give some reference point to the majority of our audience, the way the mutants fight in Godzilla Final Wars is the way every single character in Versus fights.
Except to an R-rated level.
Yeah, exactly. And that was easily the coolest thing about the movie for me, because I love the way the mutants fight. And it's very cool, and it's I wanted to bring it up for a reason. Oh, and of course, as we were saying, with him having distinct vision and a distinct style, that's what his distinct style is for me. No matter if they have superpowers or not, they jump around like ninjas, or like ninjas with superpowers fighting. That's Kitamura's style for me.
Yeah, this is basically the Kitamura universe. If you live in it, you automatically can jump high and stay airborne for a very long time.
And do like incredible kicks and stuff, yeah.
One thing I want to bring up right quick, and this is appropriate since we're talking about directing. After watching Versus for like a second time, I think, I honestly believed that Ryuhei Kitamura would be perfect as a directorial candidate for a Devil May Cry movie. I don't know if you guys ever played the video games, but it's all hack and slash. You basically slay demons with your swords. And if you play Devil May Cry, any of them, and then watch this film, there are some vague similarities between them. And of course, given that Devil May Cry, the first game came out in 2001, approximately a year after Versus came out. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Capcom drew influences from Versus, because it is so similar.
You know, I had a similar thought, but my thought was, when I was watching the movie, is I want to see this guy do a Mortal Kombat movie.
Yes!
Ryuhei Kitamura is video game material.
Yeah.
But seriously,
I haven't played Devil May Cry, but just based on Gore's, you posted a video quite a while ago, like the top 10 video games you want to see made to movies, and I hadn't watched Versus yet because today was obviously my first time. But just from what you showed in the video, I was already with you, and watching Versus now and knowing kind of a little bit about Devil May Cry, I definitely agree.
Yeah, you can definitely picture Kitamura's style fitting with the Devil May Cry universe. It's basically the same.
Yeah.
Except that instead of zombies in Devil May Cry, you got demons.
Right.
Right, so I guess we talked enough about Kitamura and his directing style. I guess overall the consensus among us is that he's a stylized director that is whatever it is you can to explain about his style is basically his style.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's original and over the top, and I just love it. It's dumb and fun. It's everything what I love about Japanese entertainment, or entertainment in general.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'd like to talk about the Ultimate Versus now, which I've been talking about with Adam, Super DM, and I think you, Zazubaar, for a little bit. And it's not a different cut from the original cut. A lot of fans would claim that this is the best cut of the film out there. It completes Kitamura's vision, but I would have to disagree. I fell in love with the original cut. It's the one that I watch to this day, and the only thing different about the Ultimate Cut is that there's 10 minutes of additional footage, mainly action sequences, choreographed by the film's main character, Tak Sakaguchi, who plays Prisoner. And there's a few editing tweaks to the soundtrack. It's a bit different, but overall the same. There's a new opening. There's a additional CG and a new CG ending credits. But it's basically the same film with a few alterations and additions. But you really have to watch the original cut multiple times to understand the differences between the two. Because once I saw the Ultimate Versus, I really didn't get what was different from the original cut.
Yeah, and again, I watched like the last 15 minutes of Ultimate Versus to see what was different, and I didn't notice anything. Aside from the visual quality, which was definitely improved, but otherwise it was the same exact movie.
Right. So I cannot honestly say Ultimate Versus is better. It's practically the same movie, except with a few little additions. But I think I should give a little history about the making of Ultimate Versus. So basically, the studio gave Ryuhei Kitamura more money to, quote-unquote, complete his mission. They went back to the forest, but this time without the original action choreographer. So Tak Sakaguchi had to fill in, and all the action sequences of the new footage you see in Ultimate Versus are his doing. One of my favorite things that he does in Ultimate Versus, which is part of the new footage, is where he does this multiple backflips, and each time he's in the air, he just shoots two zombies at the same time. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, it's in the trailer too for Ultimate Versus. You can see it on Media Blaster's channel, but yeah, the action sequences are so badass in Ultimate Versus. They're the same, but the new ones are really, really cool. And one thing that is very distinguished about the Ultimate Cut is the assassin with the red hair comes back to life for the final showdown.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you know how his and his face is literally stitched back together. I don't know if you saw that, Bill, but did you? It was part of the.
I don't remember noticing it. Like
it was the fight before the final fight.
Oh, I wasn't looking at him. That's why. I'm not remembering it. I'm sorry. I apologize for disappointing you, but I don't remember it.
Well, you'll probably see it later. Anyways,
yeah, I'm gonna say. Let me just say this quick. I'm definitely gonna watch this movie again, and I'll get into this when I rate the film. I wouldn't. It really surprised me that I want to see it again. But I just want to say that quick.
Needless to say that Ultimate Versus came out around the same time that Kill Bill Volume 1 came out, 2004. So I don't know if this was like a coincidence, given that it's vaguely comparable to Kill Bill, or
well, what I would think it is that Kitamura became really popular all of a sudden, so maybe they wanted to give him some money to do another project.
Right.
Well, popular meaning that Godzilla Final Wars is the second lowest grossing Godzilla film of all time, but it's, he was still now a name because he directed a Godzilla movie, so.
Right. Also, that would make more sense since they were probably trying to give Kitamura some exposure by marketing him as the director for Final Wars, while at the same time revisiting his old film, which was considered a classic, a cult classic at the time, because it wasn't released in the United States in theaters, but it was released in France in theaters, and it did premiere at Cannes to surprisingly positive reviews from critics.
Yeah. So.
Also, now that we're getting into the different cuts, there was a planned remake for Versus around 2008. Kitamura was in talks with the same company who was producing a Midnight Meat Train, and he was developing the American version of Versus, and I had no idea whether it was going to be full of Asians or Americans, but I'm assuming the American remake never came through, because ever since 2008, no real news has surfaced about the Ultimate Versus other than the supposed anime interpretation and the quote from Kitamura saying that the US version will be insane.
I want Tom Hanks to play the prisoner.
Tom Hanks? He's too old.
Well, ask Adam. I want Tom Hanks in everything because I love Tom Hanks. I'm totally kidding. I just thought that was amusing.
I wish that movie had happened, because when the guy who made Versus and Final Wars said this movie's going to be insane,
you better fucking believe he's telling the truth.
Right. I mean, how more insane can he get?
Right.
But I would like to see the Western audience's reaction to a film like this. If Hollywood tends
would be shot in.
Hollywood tends to water down certain remakes. I can't think of any right now, but
oh, I can name 1,000. Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th.
Well, yeah, but those films weren't exactly on the same level of gore and violence as Versus.
Oh, fair enough.
Those are horror films by principle. Of course, they're going to be like watered down because of the goddamn PETA people and religious nuts and people who are afraid of going to see scary movies, even though they go see them anyway.
And Michael Bay.
But an action film like this, I want to say that it would probably have the same impact as the audience reactions for The Raid, but The Raid didn't have too much blood and gore like Versus had. But
oh, I forgot that was an Asian film.
It was an Indonesian film.
Right. I think I saw you. Did you review that?
Yeah, I reviewed it back in March.
Okay, that's why I'm remembering it then.
Anyways,
in regular Versus, whenever they flashback past, it's in like samurai times. So if they did like an American remake, would that be like Old West or Revolutionary War, or what are we going for?
Well, ultimately the question is, if they did a remake, would it be set in the same setting as the original, or would they literally full on adapt it to American audiences? Like, it's set in, instead of being set in like the forests of Japan, it's set in like the forests of like California or Oregon and like or New York. I don't want that shit coming to my state, but set somewhere else in America, and then you've got a full-on American cast, or as Gorzard said, maybe it would just be a remake in the sense of it was just gonna be financed by America, but with a full Asian cast and full Asian production team.
If they do make a remake, I hope they go with that direction. American company financing the film, but Asian actors, because I honestly don't see the Forest of Resurrection working in an American setting.
No, not at all, because it's very much so based in Japanese fantasy stories.
Right.
So if they adapted that for Americans, it just would not work. It's okay, imagine this. Imagine they remake Gamera Guardian of the Universe, and don't change Gamera's origin, and let's say they totally set the film in America and make no reference to Japan, and they totally keep Gamera's origin the same. People would be either lost or feel disconnected from it. So some adjustments would need to be made. And with Versus, I wouldn't want them.
Right. Yeah, the only way they could even try to make it work for America is to make the whole Forest of Resurrection like a Native American thing, but yeah, it wouldn't be.
Or witchcraft.
Or what?
Or witchcraft.
Yeah, they could go that direction too.
I don't want either one.
I mean,
the problem problem with an American remake of Versus with an American setting is that you would have to sacrifice the dumb and fun things for the sake of realism.
Yeah, and also here's the other thing. Everything about the movie is very Japanese. The way they fight, everything about it's very Japanese. So let's say we take this over to America, and the characters now fight like Americans. It's going to be a boxing movie. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't Americans who know martial arts, because obviously there are. Don Fry.
No, not boxing, MMA, since that's the new trend nowadays.
Right, and yeah, mixed martial arts. And I'm not saying that they couldn't have martial arts, but if they're going to do it in an American setting and they totally Americanize the story, then you really wouldn't be able to have those Japanese fighting style elements. They'd probably be fighting basic brawler style, and instead of having samurai swords, they'd probably have baseball bats or axes or some shit.
I think they put a lot less focus on like the fisticuffs and focus more on the guns because it's America.
Exactly, yeah, and that's why that's kind of why I prefer Japanese action movies
or Asian movies in general.
Well, okay, I say action movies, and I'm kind of being...
That's what I meant. Asian action movies in general.
Well, here's what I should probably be more specific when I say that, because I'm one of my favorite movies of all time is Die Hard. And I should probably expand upon what I mean. When I say I prefer Asian action movies, I prefer Asian action movies that have an emphasis on the, fisticuffs, as Gorzard said, and I prefer American-made films that focus on the guns. Like, Die Hard is fully focused on the guns. With Versus, it's got guns in it, but that's not the main way they fight, and that's not the center point of the show. The center point of the show is the martial arts mixed in with the guns. So that's where I prefer the Asian directing, because that's where the more interesting fighting is. Because let's face it, the way Americans fight with fisticuffs is boring. If you guys disagree with me on that, of course I'll accept it. But I just think that the way Americans fight with fisticuffs is boring, especially in a movie. So that's what I mean by that.
That's why they have to use editing tricks to make it look more exciting.
Exactly. Gorzar, just to bring up an example that's probably very relevant to you. The Expendables 2 isn't really so much focused on the fisticuffs; it's more on the guns and explosions, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's what I mean by that.
Although it could be based on martial arts because they did have Chuck Norris.
And Jet Li.
And Jet Li.
Oh my god, I just can't believe that Chuck Norris and Jet Li were in the same movie.
Technically they weren't, but I'll spoil that later on.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay, anyways. So I believe we covered everything there is about Versus. It's a dumb but fun film. We talked about the characters, the yakuza with the butterfly knife, Ryuhei Kitamura and his style of directing. One thing I like to talk about the film before we go to our overall consensus and reviews, end of our reviews, is the music. Have you seen Final Wars and you kind of got thrown off by the music thinking that it wasn't Godzilla movies? Watch this film and you would understand.
And again, I love the soundtrack for Final Wars, and that means I like the soundtrack for Versus.
Yeah.
It's all done by the same guy, Nobuhiko Marino.
It's Keith Emerson?
No, Nobuhiko Marino. As a matter of fact, Keith Emerson didn't even have a complete control over the soundtrack. It was actually Nobuhiko Marino and Daisuke Yano.
I did not know that.
He just got the first billing in the credits because he was American, and because he was part of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, a big electronic British band from the 70s and 80s.
Oh, great! So my Final Wars review is even more wrong.
To be honest, most of his the tracks that he contributed to the soundtrack were rejected.
Oh, really? Well, I know he did do a composition and conduction of the classic Godzilla theme.
Yeah, which didn't appear in the final film, but it appeared on the soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
Despite rejecting 50% of his music, it did make its way to the complete soundtrack, which I own and put up on YouTube. And it sounds more like a campy music to like a television show or a video game.
Yeah.
Most of the techno stuff and the mixed of a break beat and a rock was done by Nobuhiko Marino and Daisuke Yano.
And which, thus, it shows up in Versus constantly, and that's why I like it.
Yeah. I want these guys to do more, actually, Versus was done by Nobuhiko Marino. Daisuke Yano wouldn't contribute with Kitamura until Alive.
Yeah.
And then again for Final Wars. Anyways, I want these two guys together or separate to do American films. Kind of in the same way how Harry Gregson Williamson, who does the music for Metal Gear Solid, which ironically sounds a lot like the music from Versus, does music for American films as well.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, speaking of Metal Gear Solid, Versus actually got the attention of the creator of Metal Gear Solid, Hideo Kojima, and he's good friends with Ryuhei Kitamura, and he hired them to do the cutscenes for Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes.
Oh, cool.
And all the action sequences literally are Kitamura style. It's not Metal Gear style, 100% Kitamura style. It's got the whole bullet time, the whole slow motion. It's basically Kitamura meets Final Wars, but without the monsters.
Oh, and that's one of the weak links of Final Wars 2 is the fact that there are giant monsters in it.
Right. I didn't compare it to Versus because, Versus has zombies and guys with trench coats, but...
and the funny thing is that the zombies also use martial arts and guns and samurai swords. Which was...
Well, not really.
Well, they don't do martial arts per se, but they do use samurai swords and guns.
They do use guns, not samurai swords. The only guys who actually use the samurai sword.
I'm remembering one of the zombies using a samurai sword in the second zombie fight scene.
Really?
Am I wrong? I'm not sure.
I don't remember a single zombie using a sword. I remember the only guys using a sword was the man and prisoner.
I'm remembering seeing a zombie use it, but I could very well be wrong. But they do definitely use guns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which was hilarious. Zombies firing guns. It's just like it's kind of like giving Batman a Green Lantern ring. I mean, that's such a great idea, right?
Yeah. One thing I'm so questioning about Hollywood and their zombie movies, they managed to evolve zombies from walking slow-like to running. Yeah. How come they haven't got them to use guns like Kitamura has?
Yeah, and even in Kitamura's film, they're still lumbering like traditional zombies.
Right.
So, there. All
right, so we covered basically everything about Versus. It's time to give our overall ratings.
So we'll go in traditional order. Super DM, go ahead and give your rating and overall recommendation.
Okay, so final thoughts on Versus. Words cannot describe. It is a big bowl of awesomeness from beginning to end. Highly recommended. If you are still a Versus virgin, do not be a Versus virgin any longer. Go see this movie. It's certainly not perfect, so I'm just going to give it a 4 out of 5.
It's a good thing you brought that up because Chopper said that Versus is like losing your virginity.
So, folks, get your cherry pop by Versus.
I almost forgot I wanted to mention, people, this is the movie that made Chopper Pilot 5 appreciate Final Wars.
Oh, sorry, did that actually happen? I have to pinch myself to see if that happened. Oh, okay, it happened.
For those of you who don't know, Adam, or you might know him as Chopper Pilot 5, hated, notice I'm using the word hated, past tense, hated Final Wars with a flaming passion. After he saw this movie, he went back and saw Final Wars in a new light, and now he thinks it's epic.
He basically just had the same realization about Final Wars as I had about Son of Godzilla.
Alright, so Bill, you're next.
Sure. So, I just gotta start off by saying a personal thing. I would never have seen this movie on my own, because in the basic sense, I'm not a fan of action movies. I mean, if you look at my top 10 favorite films of all time, you'll be like, yeah, you are. What I mean by that is, I'm not a fan of action movies that's the main thing that's present. Like, I like action movies that are more about a protagonist and the action being worked into his story. Like that's why Die Hard is one of my favorite movies of all time. Versus, though, is extremely, extremely focused on the martial arts, and that's why I wouldn't have seeked it out on my own. But Gorzard, I just got to give you a big thank you from the bottom of my heart for forcing me to watch this thing, because as Super DM said, I am no longer a Versus virgin. Wow. I absolutely loved this thing, and I expected to either hate it or be indifferent to it, because I don't like martial arts movies. And it is a martial arts movie, but it's much more focused on the BA samurai and action scenes. So that was BA. You cannot watch this movie and not say it's not BA, because well, that just didn't make any sense. If you say this movie's not BA, you're wrong and you're lying, because there is at least something about it that you have to admit is BA. Even if you don't like martial arts movies, the idea of a zombie using a gun is BA. So, you know, you have to appreciate it at least on that level. So I basically got to agree with everything Super DM said. I mean, it's extremely fun. Every frame is fun. My only problem with the film that's legitimately a problem is I think it sometimes drags. And I say that with a grain of salt because the movie is nothing but action scenes. But what I mean is there are a couple of points where the build up to the action is a little slow, and I was a little bit on the edge of my seat waiting for the fight to start. And not in a good way. But aside from that, I think the movie is, as Super DM said again, a big ball of awesome. But it had some pacing problems for me, and at the end of the day, though, I thought I really enjoyed it. And I know that's oh crap, I just forgot his name, Kitamura's point. So because of that, and my only problem being pacing, I'm gonna also give this film a 4 out of 5. I do ultimately recommend it. I think you should check it out in the description below. I think you'll at least be able to find some BA thing about it, especially if you're someone who likes Final Wars, especially the human scenes. I say watch Versus, so that's kind of my consensus on Versus.
Alright, so my turn.
Indeed.
I can honestly say that Versus is amongst my top 10 favorite movies of all times. There are some films out there that you just love for artistic value and integrity, like Gojira's Citizen Kane or King Kong. But then there's also films you just love the hell out of for their badassness. And Versus is one of those films. It has everything that I love about, films that deliver entertainment value. It has, action, it has comedy, it has a small bit of story, but not too much that it overflows with it and becomes preachy. It's a very good film. It's a fun film that you would want to come home and watch after a hard day's work. It's bloody. I don't know if that's relevant to the positiveness of it, but
no, it is.
Or it is. Anyways, Versus is just a movie that is pure entertainment. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's not meant to be a politically driven film or a film with a message. It's just a film about badass people with guns fighting zombies and swordplay. It has all of these Evil Dead style zombie killings, these Highlander style sword plays, and this John Woo Matrix style gunfights. Everything that I love about action movies is in this film, except, of course, for big boobs. That's missing.
Oh, yeah, I was disappointed.
Although the Asian girl thing does make up for it.
Gorzard.
You knew I had to bring that up at one point.
Oh, I was expecting it earlier. I was almost disappointed.
I saved the best for last. Anyways,
Indeed.
If you haven't seen Versus or have no interest of seeing it, I recommend you to see it anyway, because it's such a good film. If you hated Final Wars, then watch this movie, because it will easily convert you into a Final Wars lover. It's been proven.
Indeed. Scientifically proven.
Scientifically proven. And if you loved Final Wars, then you will love this film. It's an absolute treat. I loved Final Wars, and when I saw this film, I just, I had the same feeling I got when I first saw Final Wars. I just had this little fanboy in me just squealing like,
I want a crossover.
I don't know. It had zombies. It had immortals. It had swordplay, John Woo gunfights. That's why, I love those things. I love that kind of genre. And it just, to find a film that blends all those genres into one film, it's just, nerdgasm.
Oh, indeed.
Anyways, it's a great film. It's it's definitely worth the watch. It's a very high recommendation. I give it a 4-star out of 4. Watch it. You have to watch it.
Yes, go watch it and then smoke yourself a cigarette because you are no longer a versus virgin.
No, not a cigarette, a fucking stogie.
Yeah.
Like we're all gonna sit on our front porches and be like, just smoking a cigar. That was fun.
Right.
But that movie is
Bill, take it away.
Yeah, this movie popped my cherry. No, wow, can't believe I just said that on my channel. So that was awesome, dude. Thank you very much for doing that. I really had a blast not having to host this time. But it was definitely fun to hear all our insights. And now we're of course gonna go into a new segment on ZGC Monthly Reviews. We're actually going to be changing it up a little bit with Lost, Found, But Never Filmed. We're actually going to be doing this time was never lost, didn't need to be found, and was filmed less than a year ago. And we each made a pick for that, and before we get into each pick, we're actually going to say our name. So, I don't know about you guys, but I picked the 2012 film Lake of Death. So, Gorzar, what'd you pick?
I picked Lake of Death too.
Really? Super
Yeah.
DM, what'd you pick?
Damn it, I picked Lake of Death too.
Really? Whew. That's a tough one then. We can either do one of two things. We could cancel the review and just stop here. Or we could simply fucking review Lake of Death. So, I don't know, what do you guys want to do?
Let's review the bitch.
Oh, alright. Super DM, you agree?
Sure.
Oh, fuck. Well, I guess we're going to have to review Lake of Death then. If you didn't get that, that was a joke. Just to start this off, Adam has been dying for me to do a review of Lake of Death ever since he posted the damn thing. And, I'm partially to blame that because I promised him one long before he even made the movie, so, you know, kind of my fault. I wish I could say I was waiting on purpose. Well, I kind of was, because I did want to do it on ZGC. I just needed to find a time to do it, because we already had a set thing going on until this review. So, that's why we're doing it now. And that's also why I've been biting my tongue, trying to make my thoughts that I've put out there as generalized as possible and as secretive as possible. And now I'm going to get my thoughts out on our colleague and friend's motion picture, Lake of Death. So we're going to be doing another review inside of a review. So isn't that funny and cool? So the first thing I do want to cover though is kind of a warning. I think that it's kind of questionable to review this movie on two grounds. One, Adam is a close friend of ours. And I wrestled with that for a while because I almost didn't want to do the review, again, for two reasons. And the first one was Adam is a close friend of mine. And it's hard to be objective and constructively critique someone's work who you're a friend with because you have a respect for it on a different level. So it's difficult to review objectively in that way. But the one that is kind of more generalized in terms of critiquing it is the fact that it's by definition a backyard movie. It's an amateur production, and not Adam presents it to the contrary, but it is technically an amateur production. It's directed by a high school student with whatever resources he had or whatever resources he had to create. It has practically no budget, so by its very nature, it's a backyard movie. And reviewing a backyard movie is tough because some things aren't problems because, of the limited resources. So I almost didn't want to review it on that regard as well, but upon watching the film again, I think that at least the second problem is not a problem. So I don't know if you guys have the same thing, but we may have some problems with objectivity here. So I just thought I should put that out there. But again, watching it again, I think I could be pretty objective about it while also taking into account the backyard movie thing, but it not spoiling the review. So I just wanted to get that out there. So I want to go in a little bit of a different structure with our review of Lake of Death. And I want to actually go round robin because Gorzard is the only one among us who's actually done a video review of it, and he did that. Was it a couple weeks ago?
I know it was sometime around late August. It was either 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, around there.
All right, so it was recent. And he's the only one among us who has done it, who has already reviewed it. So well, let's go round robin, and just because you've already reviewed it, why don't you go first, dude? What are your overall thoughts of Lake of Death?
Oh wait, it's my turn?
Yeah, we're gonna go round robin, but since you've already done a review, I want you to go first. So just go ahead. What are your overall thoughts?
Well, my overall thoughts is that I'm impressed with what Adam can do with a homemade video structure. I can only imagine what he can do with a big budget and with a big studio financing him. I was fairly impressed with what he can do with the camera, very limited materials that he has, and how he can write a script. I was very impressed with the script. I was expecting a very weak script, despite how much Adam loves filmmaking and all this stuff. I had no idea he was going to be this good. Normally, when I meet someone who's into film, they hand me or present me a piece of shit. This was not the case. He handed me a work of art.
Yeah.
So that's my feelings about it.
Super DM?
Everything about this movie is great. The score is great. The characters give great performances. The script writing, again, is great. It does have a couple issues that are excusable because, like you said, it's a backyard movie. Like, there's a couple places where the audio is kind of iffy, and then there's one really bad CG fire effect. But again, those problems are completely excusable given that it's a backyard movie. So overall, very impressed with what he could do. I forget what he told me the budget was, but it was like just over $200, and he created something that really you can hold up against, just on terms of quality, you could hold up against something made in Hollywood.
Yeah. So are you done, or can I go, or?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
All right, so, again, I'm the only one who hasn't really divulged any sort of the detailed feelings about this film because I've been waiting to do a video review of it. Wow is the only really way I can sum up it. This movie totally rocked my world in that, I was talking to Adam and, him telling me about what he was trying to do with it long before he even had the script done. So I was very involved and following this film's production, and despite knowing nearly every detail about it beforehand, it still just deeply impressed me because once it all came together, I was just like, wow, that is amazing. And really the thing is, though, that it's easily the most impressive movie I've actually seen all year. I'm gonna go that far. I mean, even comparing it to like stuff like The Dark Knight Rises and stuff, it is easily the most impressive film I've seen all year. And that's been mainly because, yeah, this is a backyard movie, but it's really not, because by definition it is, as I said before. But by the way it's presented, by the way it's written, and by the way it's directed especially, it's not a backyard movie. He presents it as an actual piece of cinema, and because of that, you can take it seriously, and because of that, you can hold it up to stuff that is made in Hollywood and put out in theaters because he presents it as such, and his passion and his drive forces that to go on screen. I mean, I was just like, is there anything you can't do with limited resources? Because I was just very, very impressed with. That doesn't describe it. I left a comment on Gorzard's review saying that I thought it was beyond impressive, and I hold up to that. Calling this movie impressive is kind of not giving it enough credit, because I had this reaction. It's groundbreaking because, again, it's a backyard movie, but it's not at the same time, and that impressed me because with pieces of crap that I've put on my channel that I call film, yeah, big quotation marks around that, comparing it to this, it's trash. And I mean, it's just like what am I trying to say here? Again, it's groundbreaking and totally rocked my world about what you can do with a backyard filmmaking style, and it just literally rocked my world. So I was beyond impressed with it. I thought it was groundbreaking for what Adam was able to do with the resources he had, and I was just wowed by it. Every aspect for me worked to some degree. I thought the acting was, again, for a background movie, extremely impressive. There were some flat line delivery, but again, these are a bunch of Adam's friends putting on a performance, and for the most part, they sell the characters. There just are a few times when, the delivery is a little flat, but it's kind of unavoidable with, getting a bunch of your friends together and filming a movie, because these are people who don't act every day. So when they're given a character they're supposed to represent on screen, sometimes they have a little bit of a problem delivering the line. So criticizing flat line delivery in a backyard movie is not a fair criticism because of the actors themselves and their background. So for what they have, for people who don't act every day and for people who haven't been trained, it's again beyond impressive what they're able to do and how they're able to sell the characters. And my only criticism of the film is actually the thing that Super DM brought up, the audio. For the most part, it's perfect. I think the music especially is well balanced in with the dialogue, and the sound effects are well balanced in with the dialogue. For the most part, there are two scenes that stick out to me as problematic with the audio. The first one is Zeke's first line, when he says that what did he say? That's not how you hold a gun, is what he said. And you can't hear it at all. And that was problematic for me, and that's just because it sounded like the actor was far away from wherever the point of recording was. I don't know if that was actually filmed or recorded on location, but he sounded very far away from it, and I couldn't hear what he was saying at all. And I didn't get what he was saying until he said it again later on in the scene. And that was problematic for me because that's Zeke's first appearance, and he has an epic introduction after that. So not hearing his first line was problematic. Again, you can excuse it to a point because it's a background movie, but I would have been perfectly fine with just cutting out realism, because I know why it sounded like that, because he was trying to make him sound like he was outside the room, which he was, and I can commend the attempt at realism, but I would have been totally cool with that being sacrificed just to be able to hear what he was saying, because it is a great line and it's a good way to introduce the character. So I thought it was problematic for you not be able to hear it. The other big point for me was when Zeke and Fran are talking beside the lake, and you can hear the running water, and you can't hear anything they're saying. And that was also problematic for me because it's kind of a touching / character revealing scene. So that was also problematic for me.
I had no problems with the audio that much. I anticipated that the audio was going to be, what's the word? I guess unprofessional.
Which is not at all.
Yeah, which is not. Yeah, the audio, whatever problems it may have, it doesn't completely overshadow the entire film.
Oh, and I'm not saying it does. I mean, I thought that in those two scenes it was problematic.
Right. There are some scenes where, yeah, you can hear the wind blowing, and it kind of doesn't match with the next cut or the previous cut, but I anticipated that because, like you said, this is a backyard film, or as I call it, a home movie, and I had no problems with that. All I cared about was these characters, the story that he was trying to tell, and what was going to happen.
Oh no, and I agree. I think that again, the audio is again, for the most part, well done. It was just those two scenes I had a problem with, and I'm not taking points off because, again, dude, this is a backyard movie, so you really can't take off points for the lack of resources in terms of audio quality, because that's just silly and not a good way to review it and look at it. So I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was problematic for what was going on with the characters, but it didn't ruin the movie at all, and I'm not taking points off for that. So
right.
It just bugged me in those two scenes. I want to go back to the characters for a minute. I was completely shocked at how much I cared and was interested in these characters. I freaking love Zeke. I think he's very interesting, extremely likable, and totally fits into the role he has in the film. And,
I was fairly Oh, go on.
No, continue, because I think you're about to say what I was going to say, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was fairly impressed with that actor. I forgot his name, but
Logan Caddell is his name.
Logan Caddell. I was impressed with him on how he can effectively deliver an action hero. I don't know if that was what Chopper was trying to go with, an action hero, because he doesn't like action movies, based on what I've seen. But yeah. However he was written, he really brings it to life in this film. He obviously hasn't had any training, or that I know of, in acting, but he delivers his performance very well. He has a very strong and powerful presence in the film.
Yeah. Definitely. And that was the main thing that impressed me, was that whenever he was on screen, he owned the scene. And I think that was mainly the way Adam was writing him, was he's the guy who's in control. And I was just completely surprised at how effective he was at that, because I was just very surprised at how effective he was at characterizing that owning the film kind of idea that I think Adam was trying to bring to the character, because he was kind of the leader of that group. So I thought that was extremely well done and well acted and well written. Super DM, you were going to say something?
Yes, I'm talking about the character of Zeke. I really wanted to talk about, I like his progression from the last film, because this is, of course, a sequel to another film that he did called Forest of Blood.
Oh, I forgot to mention that. Thank you.
In Forest of Blood, Zeke's character is kind of similar to Peter's character in this movie. He's the young kid that kind of unwittingly jeopardizes everyone else through just his inexperience. But in this film, he steps up and takes the role that the character of JJ had in the first film, of being the responsible leader. And so that's one thing watching the movies, was I really like his character progression and how he goes from being the newbie to being the main star in the second film. One of the things that Adam told me before he even posted Lake of Death was when I commented on Forest of Blood, because I watched it in preparation, he told me Lake of Death blows this out of the water, and I told him that was the understatement of the year, and I still stand by that. It is definitely a vast... Forest of Blood, I think, is a great film about potential. It really shows you the potential of what Adam can do, and then this movie just completely fulfills that potential.
I agree completely. By the way, we just kind of lost Gorzard for a second, but he's back now. Just basically to get you up to speed, dude. Basically, just Super DM and I are just talking about the progression of both Adam's filmmaking and Zeke's character from Forest of Blood. And I forgot to mention in my little introduction that this is indeed a sequel film. Not that it, in the end, really matters unless you're really following the character of Zeke, because then it does kind of matter. But it's nothing that Adam doesn't explain in the movie, so I don't think you need to watch Forest of Blood.
You can watch this movie without seeing Forest of Blood, because, again, Zeke has sort of graduated to the leader role. And so if you're more focused on, like, the characters of Fran or Peter or Archer, you can come right into this movie without even worrying about the last one.
Yeah. And I have to completely agree with you on... Forest of Blood is very much so of, this is what I can do with even more limited resources, and then Lake of Death is, this is what I can do with even more expanded resources, and it's a very impressive progression, and in every regard, the script is stronger, the editing is stronger, the music score obviously is amazing. I mean, just everything about it is more impressive. And it's not taken lightly. I mean, Adam uses everything he can get his hands on, and that makes it an extremely impressive film to watch. So I do have to agree with that statement.
He's stated that there's going to be a third one, so I'm really excited to see how much he expands that even farther.
Yeah, he's been telling me about the third movie quite a bit, and I'm very excited for it as well, especially with it being the end, because
exactly.
He even said before he made Lake of Death that he wanted to do a trilogy of zombie films, and excuse me. By the way, I should probably mention this now. We just reviewed 2 zombie movies today.
Based in forests.
Based in forests. Isn't that weird? And also, as Gorzard said, Kitamura was kind of directing Versus as if it were a backyard movie.
Ironic.
Yeah, very ironic, and not intentional at all. We were going to review Lake of Death today, no matter what the film we were going to do in the actual segment was. But kind of a funny coincidence. But anyway, to get back to Lake of Death, I was just extremely impressed with how far he progressed it, and again, I too am excited to see what he does in the third film. So one thing I do want to kind of bring up though is how impressive this is in the realm of zombie movies. There are a lot of zombie movies nowadays, and very few of them are supposed to be taken seriously. The only zombie property out there now that I can honestly say you're supposed to take this seriously is the Walking Dead TV series and the comics. I've seen the pilot episode of Walking Dead, and I was fairly impressed with it. I haven't read the comics. And Lake of Death was very much so in the same boat as the Walking Dead, because I mean, how many other zombie properties have you guys seen out there that are supposed to be taken seriously as a serious horror movie? Everything else that's a zombie movie out there today is supposed to be either a comedy or an action movie, like the new Resident Evil that's coming out. Very little of it is supposed to be a serious horror movie, and Lake of Death was kind of going back to that. It's a very Night of the Living Dead-esque film, Dawn of the Dead, a very Romero-esque film. And having conversations with Adam, he said that Romero was part of his inspiration. That's definitely present in the film. But I was just very impressed with how much he was able to take the zombie genre back to being a serious film genre again, and how easily it is for him to convince you that it was supposed to be that way. So I was very impressed with that as well.
But I would have to agree.
I think that's one of the advantages of having slow-moving zombies.
Yeah, definitely.
They're so much more. They have a much larger presence than when you've got a movie and the zombie is sprinting towards you like a marathon runner.
Indeed, it also makes more sense that they're lumbering.
Even though he's like 350-pound dude. And, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I agree with that as well. So I was very impressed with this as a zombie movie, and I was just impressed with how much he was able to go back to the roots of the zombie genre, and kind of become part of that field of Romero-esque zombie movies. So I was impressed with that as well. So here's one question I want to ask you guys: did you think it was scary?
No, not really.
Go
ahead.
If I wasn't as exposed to horror films as I am, then maybe I would have. But
I didn't think it was scary in traditional horror movie sense. Here's how I thought it was scary. Again, I didn't think it was a jumping out of your seat scary horror movie. I don't think Adam wanted that anyway, because he expressed negative feelings toward those films anyway, and obviously he's not going to incorporate that into his movies just because that's the way the horror genre is supposed to work. Here's how I found it scary. One, the atmosphere. Very thick atmosphere in Lake of Death, and in Forest of Blood as well, but even more so in Lake of Death. And I think Thomas Jordan's music score has something to do with that as well. And but here's how I found it scary. It was more in the universe itself. Because like when Zeke and Archer are talking about how, or was it Zeke and Peter, I think it was, who were talking about how the military started shooting random people because they thought they were zombies. That in and of itself is a scary thought. And in that regard, it's not jumping out of your seat screaming, but it's disturbing. And that's how I found it scary. And that's going to lead into if you guys have nothing else to say about the genre crossing and how this fits into the genre, I want to talk about the social commentary, and I think that's where that fits in. So go ahead.
What you just said, it kind of reminds me and takes it back to like the old black and white like Universal movies, where it's not like jump out of your seat scary, but it can be scary through the thoughts that it provokes.
Exactly.
And what you said about the atmosphere, completely agree. The soundtrack, just all the slow, like, taps on the piano keyboard, making that ominous music against, like, the snowy white backdrop, creates such a great atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree. So since I didn't write down an actual slot for it in my organization, do you guys want to talk about the music score briefly? Because I was completely blown away by it, about how awesome it was.
Oh, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And it's been stuck in my head ever since I first heard it.
It complements what's going on screen.
Yeah, it's very, very ominous, and that's what I like about it. And it's extremely... It does definitely fit to what's going on screen in that it fits the slow pace and the building up kind of pace. Like, this movie feels like it's slowly building up to what's going on. Like, it takes a good, I guess, maybe 8 or 9 minutes before an actual zombie shows up on screen. And it's a very good build-up to that. I mean, you see a dead one, but and that also helps in the build-up, but there's a very great build-up in this. And the music score complements that.
The word that the music had in the back of my head the entire time was bleak.
Yeah, very much so.
And that goes back to the atmosphere and how the music complements the atmosphere, which is the function of music, or should be the function of music in a movie anyway, is for reasons of atmosphere. It's very bleak. It has that apocalyptic feel that you need for a post-apocalyptic zombie franchise.
Right, I agree. If I could, I would definitely download this score on my iPod because it's been stuck in my head for months now, or however long. Well, since, not to brag, but I think the bunch of us saw the film way advanced before anyone else did, and it's been stuck in my mind ever since that viewing.
One thing I like to say that I had a problem with was the ending. Now, Adam, he loves fuck you endings, so I wasn't surprised that he kind of delivered an abrupt ending, as I'm going to be referring it to now, because after Archer dies, we kind of like switch to like the epilogue of the ending. Mm-hmm. And we have this little mini monologue with Zeke narrating, and all of a sudden, it ends, and you're left questioning what happens to Zeke and Fran.
See, I actually thought that fit rather well because it conveyed that same bleakness that I was talking about throughout the entire film, but yet at the end managed to put like a bit of hope in there because Zeke says that maybe one day this will all end. So I thought the ending monologue and the way that the action or the pace just kind of cut off, I thought that actually fit rather well for what it was trying to do.
I thought it was a little abrupt as well, but I want to put emphasis on a little bit because I think it works with what I think the theme of the film is, and I can say theme strongly because Adam has told me there is something in here besides with the natural plot. So for all of you people out there who are like, it's a backyard movie, it can't have a theme, you're wrong because the director wanted one, so I think I can comfortably talk about it, and that's my next topic. But just to talk about the ending in general, I too thought it was a tad abrupt because the whole purpose of the film, and it's why the film is called that, is Lake of Death, is they're trying to cross this lake to get to an island, and that never happens in the movie. And what am I trying to say? Oh, and I think it's a little abrupt in that Archer dies, and then Zeke and Fran just run away, and then the movie ends. And just in terms of the ending of a movie, it's a little bit like the movie just kind of stops, but I don't think it's a huge problem, and it wasn't dissatisfying. Like, I felt like the film had come to a natural point where it was like, this is where we can safely conclude. So I kind of agree with both of you to varying degrees.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it was intended to be that way. Like, it's not the kind of abrupt ending where it's like, did they just run out of script pages? It's the kind of abrupt ending that seems to have a purpose for being abrupt.
Yeah, and I want to get to that in a minute. So I kind of agree with both of you to varying degrees. So do you guys have anything else you want to say about the film, kind of in general, before we get into what I want to talk about, which is the social commentary?
No.
All right.
No.
Okay, so Adam has told me multiple times and has discussed with me multiple times what he wants to do with this film and say with this film on the ground of social commentary. And I'm going to give my take first because... whoa, all right. I want to give my take first because I didn't pick up on it fully until this viewing because Adam prepped me for it beforehand. I think this movie is very much so Adam's criticism of the way modern, especially American, because this film obviously takes place in America, American civilization, the way society functions. Zombies very oftentimes in cinema have been used as a way to allegorize the way we act as people. I mean, in Dawn of the Dead, the zombies flock to the mall because that's what they, people walk around malls like zombies. Fitting social commentary. Very similar idea here, though the zombies are used more of as an idea rather than as an actual distinct allegorical force. They do very much so come off as a force of nature, and I think that the way they're presented, that works. So the fact that they're not quite personified is not a problem for me because of the way it's used, in that they're more of a force of nature to get the civilization to break down. And here's where I think Adam has his point, where he's kind of showing how easy it is for the civilization, our modern day civilization, to devolve into anarchy. And where it comes up is in one early on is the talking about the emergency broadcast, the emergency broadcast system. And also when Peter was talking about going, when Zeke is talking about going to G8 Summit, and how they were the wrong people in charge. But with the emergency broadcast system, he says, I wouldn't trust them anyway. And I really like that line because it's kind of like saying, after a while, it just kind of shows that we were not prepared for this, and we should have been prepared for something like this. And I think it was just kind of the film saying, and later on with Archer's character especially, saying that how easy it is and how inevitable it was for some force of nature like this to break down our society. So that was kind of my overall take on it. Would you guys agree, or do you think he was trying to do something else with it?
I honestly didn't see the allegorical themes behind it or the social commentary. I was just viewing this as a movie. I wasn't prepared to interpret the social commentary. Adam didn't even tell me that there was any social commentary, so I can't really say anything about it.
All right, well, fair enough. I mean, fair enough. So Super DM, though, would you have anything to add to that, or?
I think I agree with your consensus on what the social commentary is supposed to be, especially taking into account not just what this film has to say, but also carrying over some of the things that he did in Force of Blood. It's an overarching theme that seems to, from what he's told me, will also be present in the next film. So yeah, I think his entire zombie trilogy is basically that very thing of the breakdown of society, how easy it is to break down society. Not a theme that's new at all. People have explored this theme many, many times, but being explored in a different way.
Well, doing it with zombies is certainly interesting.
Yes.
Because doing that specific thing has never truly been done in a zombie film, or not that I'm not a huge fan of the genre, but from what I've seen, it hasn't been done specifically. The closest thing I can think of is the way it happens in Night of the Living Dead. But in a different way. That film's not so much doing the breaking down of society, but the clashing of people who are trying to survive. And that's in this as well, but I think that it's more specifically how easy it is for people to go into that state of anarchy and betray their own forms of justice that they had in civilization. And it only took a zombie apocalypse to get them there, to that point of anarchy. And I thought that was very interesting and very well explored, especially with the character of Archer.
Like you mentioned, the thing from, I think it's Dawn of the Dead that has the shopping mall.
Yeah.
Social commentary in zombie movies in the past has been more of just sort of a wink and a nod, like using them to poke fun. But this is more of a serious analysis of our culture and our society done through zombies, which is something that we haven't seen as much of. The only other example I can think of is the original book and the original ending that they were supposed to have in I Am Legend had an interesting idea behind it. But other than that, I really can't think of many examples of zombie films that really go in deep to social commentary like the Death does.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to get into the character of Archer now, because I think he's the focal point of that, especially compared to Zeke. In that Archer, right when we meet him, has very much so become that anarchistic, I'm just trying to survive and care about no one except myself kind of character. And that especially for one, in his intro when he is trying to shoot Zeke just to get food, and I mean that's a little bit of an obvious thing that now he's willing to kill just for his own survival and kill members of his own race. I mean, not just zombies. And I thought that was well done too. But the one that I liked even more was when he talks about shooting Peter and then shooting others who are about to turn. Right, obviously he's about to shoot Peter once Peter's been bitten, and Zeke stops him. And of course that's just Zeke coming out and supporting human life and excuse me, I have a dry throat. And excuse me. And Zeke coming out and supporting, life over kind of practicality, in that, it would be practically fine to shoot Peter now so we don't have to deal with him as a zombie. But in terms of, in the terms of humanity, let the guy live out his last days. You know what I mean? And that also comes to the forefront with, when Archer says, I've seen many friends turn, I shot them all. He sounds very dispassionate about it. And I took that as, nowadays we care more about ourselves and about our relationships with others. And I think that was one of Adam's criticisms of the way society works nowadays, in that it doesn't seem like it took much to get Archer to kill his friends, quote unquote. Like, it seemed very easy for him to just go, oh, I shot them because they were about to kill me. And again, I thought that was a parallel to, it was easy for society to break down because of the zombie apocalypse. And Archer was very much representing that. And that's also kind of brought into his character, in that he's always kind of off on his own, even when he's with Zeke and Fran. He's never one of the group, you know what I mean? He's always just kind of off doing his own thing while Zeke and Fran are either talking or taking a rest. He's always off looking around or, trying to benefit his own situation. And again, I took that as, here's a guy who is completely dedicated to his own survival and to nothing else. So, again, easy for our society and moral codes to break down. So I really liked Archer's character for that, and I found him very interesting.
And I love the little rivalry that he has with Zeke, that you can tell just in the way that he looks at him, and it's brought to the forefront more so in the director's cut.
Yeah, very much so.
But he has this sort of animosity towards Zeke, yet at the same time, I think there's almost like a mutual respect kind of thing.
Yeah,
because they're both survivors. And but going back to the whole situation with Peter, the idea, of course, is not new. Almost every zombie movie has had
fair enough.
One of the people gets bitten, and there's this big debate: do we shoot them, or what do we do? But this film manages to do that. Take that zombie movie cliche and do it to such an emotional level that you genuinely feel bad, not only for Peter but also for Fran, especially in the scene where she actually has to shoot him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you really bought it in this film in a way you don't always buy it, in that oftentimes it doesn't come off as very difficult or painful for them to shoot the guy who's about to turn, and it came off that way in this film. And here's why. That was kind of the big moment in the movie, because it happens only like 15 minutes before the movie ends, and that was the big moment. And I feel like that also lends into the strength of the social commentary, because that's kind of the climax of it.
Yeah, the entire second act, I think, where they're in the house, and if Peter hadn't gotten dead, they probably would have moved on to the lake the very next day, but they stay in the house for the 3 days that he's slowly turning into a zombie. That entire second act is just building up to it, and you know it's coming, but you don't want it to come.
Yeah.
And then it happens, and it's over, and they move on.
Yeah, definitely. And
the only other movie I can think that actually made me feel sorry for the person they had to shoot was, oddly enough, Shaun of the Dead, but that was because it was his mother.
I thought that they also did it pretty effectively and it was in a pretty tragic way, Night of the Living Dead, where her daughter turns and stabs her with a spade. I thought that was tragic as well.
That one was pretty good too.
Yeah. And it was, of course, very effective in Lake of Death. So I was very impressed with the social commentary. I thought it was extremely well integrated. And for the most part, it fits in well with the story. And I can't really think of any points where it's either too heavy-handed or clunky. I think for the most part, the story is based on the social commentary, and I think that's a good way to do it. And for the most part, it's well structured. So I was very, very impressed with the social commentary. And I thought that it was a criticism of the way society works in a way that's relevant now and will probably be relevant for a long time. There's no major current-day political or pop culture references that he uses to support his theme, kind of like you get with like the comic book series Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters, which is filled with stupid pop culture references. He makes it very timeless in that it's a very generalized idea of society breaking down. You feel like this could have happened in either 1987 or 2012. So I liked that. I thought it was a good way to make this quite a timeless film, while also one that's relevant today and will probably be relevant for a long time. So I was very impressed with the social commentary. And for the most part, I thought it was well integrated. So I was very impressed with that as well. And overall, this movie is just beyond impressive and is absolutely amazing. So that was really all I personally had written down to cover. So is there anything that you guys want to bring up that I didn't bring up?
No, I think I covered everything I needed to say when we started reviewing the film.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it.
I think so too.
I think we've been rather thorough. I think this has been almost as long as this portion that we did about Versus.
Not quite. My camera is actually almost out of space, so we do have to kind of start wrapping this up. So we'll go to scores, and we'll, as we did with Versus, we'll go in backwards order of the C to the Z, or in this case, to the S to the Z. So, Super DM, your score and recommendation for Lake of Death.
Well, I definitely recommend it. When I first saw it, I called it brilliant, and I stand by that 100%. This is a brilliant film. I kind of struggled with what I was going to give it, because on the one hand, I kind of wanted to give it a 4 because it was, again, it has some problems, but then on the other hand, I wanted to just excuse those completely since it's a small backyard movie and just go ahead and give it a 5. So I'm just going to cut it right down the middle and give it a 4.5.
All right, so Gorzard.
I was, fairly impressed with this film. I can only imagine what Adam can do with a bigger budget and more actors. I envy him for the resources that are available to him, because back then I had to work with unprofessional actors. Needless to say that I didn't consider them professionals, but all my stuff came out into comedies. I intended them to be serious, but they came out like comedies. Here, Adam has a complete control over his actors, which is something I lacked back then, and he sets out what he intended to do. He achieved his goal. He delivered a fascinating, wonderful film that I highly recommend for someone to watch, especially if you're an inspiring filmmaker like me and Bill. I don't know about Super DM, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's an impressive film, and I can't wait for the third and, I'm assuming, finale. I give Lake of Death 4 stars out of 4.
Since I agree with everything that Super DM and Gorzar just said, I don't have much else to add that I haven't already said in this review. Basically, I can sum up this film with 3 letters, W-O-W, and no, that doesn't stand for World of Warcraft, but wow. I was just this film. It's amazing. It's groundbreaking. If you have any appreciation for film in general and are aspiring, as Gorzar said, aspiring to be a filmmaker at some point in your life, you have to give this movie a watch, because it is literally like a textbook on film on how to do a very impressive and elaborate film with practically no money or resources. And Adam's work with Lake of Death is a testament to how much you can do with practically nothing. So just wow, watch this movie if you're an aspiring filmmaker, but also if you're a fan of the zombie genre. I think that this film's social commentary and use of the zombies is interesting enough and cool and entertaining enough where I feel like that you should just watch it for that, because it's just a good zombie movie in general, especially since it takes it back to the serious zombie films like Romero's films, and is contrary to what is being done today with the more comedic zombie films. So I appreciated it and respected it on that regard as well. But like Super DM, I too wrestled with giving this film a 5 out of 5 because it definitely has its flaws, and not ones that are necessarily excusable for it being a backyard film, excuse me. Like the main thing that bothered me was the audio, and it was just in those two places where I found it very problematic, and it kind of took me out of the movie. But at the end of the day, this movie impressed me on a level where I would feel uncomfortable, and not just because Adam's a friend of mine, but just on how I saw the movie and how I appreciated it, I would feel uncomfortable and remiss to not give it a 5 out of 5 just because of the audio issues and because of the flat line delivery, because neither of those things ruined the movie for me. Just everything about it came together into one package where I was just like, wow, damn well done job. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 based on what it is, because again, we have to keep in mind that this is technically a backyard movie, but though again, Adam doesn't present it as such, and because he doesn't present it as such, but because it is, it's groundbreaking for that, and that's why I'm giving it a 5 out of 5, despite the flat line delivery and the audio issues, because they're very excusable for the overall film. So I'm going to give Lake of Death a 5 out of 5. So that'll about do it for this very, very long edition of ZGC Monthly Reviews. This one is definitely longer than our Gamma review, which, kind of problematic, but not really. So thank you very much for sticking with us, as always. And finally, after 3 months of not being here, Adam will indeed be returning to us next month, because it is his turn to take the reins of a movie that he saw in the past, but Gorzard and I have not seen. So next month, Adam will be returning with a review of a film that he saw a while ago, but it'll be our first time seeing it, when we take a look at Waterloo, which is a film based on the life of Napoleon. So we'll see you guys next time for that review. I'm Zazubaar.
I'm Gorzard. And I'm SuperDM64.
Thank you very much for watching, and see you next month for a review of Waterloo.